Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Virginia's for Realtors. I'm pleased to be joined today by Kristina Price, team leader of Home Journey Real Estate Group, brokered by EXP. Kristina, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Tanner?
I'm doing awesome. I'm back from St. Croix, and for those who have never been to St. Croix, add it to the list. I had such a great time. I don't even like beaches, and I like this place, so add it to your
Really?
list.
I've never
Oh yeah.
been.
I highly recommend. It's a U.S. territory, so it's not like you're flying to some honestly third world country or anything like that.
Yeah.
The only difference is you drive on the other side of the road. And for the first couple days that I got back, I'll be honest, I was like, "Am I on the right side or not?" So,
I'm sure that made your wife very happy.
oh, yes, indeed. Well, the funny thing was, we got to the airport, and when we got home, and I was like, I think you need to drive. Like, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. So she
Yeah.
did, and then
Yeah.
then I kind of practiced in the neighborhood a little bit, and it
Yeah.
definitely got your mind clicking the other way. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah. That is funny. It
What?
reminds me of whenever I go to Jersey, I always come home just a little more aggressive on the road, just the tiniest bit. I was like,
I
oh,
got you.
wait,
I got you.
I'm in the
Well,
South.
that
Okay.
leads to a perfect segue for us. So I always like to get a feel for what folks did before they got in the business, whether they grew up in the local area. So first, tell people where you are currently, and then where you came from.
Well, that's easy because it's one and the same. I am in Virginia Beach and I came from Virginia Beach. So I
Oh,
am one of
very
those,
very nice.
yeah, rare true locals, and my parents weren't even military. So,
Oh
yeah,
wow. Okay.
shocker, right?
Right. Gotcha. So when you were growing up in the area, now did you move from different neighborhoods all around Virginia Beach, or did you just stay in the one spot, and my folks still have a house for that they had for 50 years, or what?
No, so my folks were divorced, and so because of that, I actually technically lived on 2 sides of Virginia Beach, and
Okay.
both of them moved at separate times, to other areas of Virginia Beach. So I kinda lived all over, and of course, if you're from this area, it's, Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, but it's all kind of one city. And so I went to church growing up in Norfolk, and worked in Chesapeake, and just kind of spread my wings. And then later on in life, when I got married, now to my ex-husband, we lived in Portsmouth and Newport News, Chesapeake, and Virginia Beach. So we kind of lived all over Hampton Roads, just in general.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you've hit the 7 cities almost, so you have a good little taste, a little bit of everywhere. And I always find, and I'm sure for you, still being here, that just like where the memories you have as a kid, where I used to play at this area, this was an empty lot, now it's whatever. I'm sure you just drive around and are in like, wow, what a
Yes.
crazy growth that it's seen.
Yeah, every time I drive around, I sound older and older because I'm like, "Oh, I remember, and then there was nothing there. Oh, remember, I broke into that place when they were building it, and I got my butt booked for it," and, remember before roads were extended. And yeah, I'm a little older than I look, and so I remember a lot of the country part of Virginia Beach, and a lot of people don't realize just how country and like the sections of Virginia Beach that were rural back in the 70s and
Yeah.
80s, but I remember a lot of it.
Definitely hard to believe now, that's for sure. So when
Yeah.
you're growing up in the area now, did you have a I want to be a realtor bug when you were young, or you had no idea about it? Like, how did this happen?
No, 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 no. That didn't happen until I was like late 30s. And so I got into this game much later in life. Growing up, I was heavily involved in my local church and actually wanted to be an international missionary.
Wow, okay.
I took Spanish for 10 years and even went to Mexico and lived in Mexico for a summer, and was pretty focused. And that's what I got my degree in. Um, and so my life definitely has taken a couple of 90-degree turns here and there.
Right.
But yeah, growing up, that's what I was very passionate about at the time.
Outstanding. Well, and have you had a chance to use your Spanish with clients and now in later in life here?
Every once in a while, yes. Unfortunately, just like any other skill set, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So it is much easier for me to read than it is to converse and speak and understand verbally. So I try, but Chat GPT and Google Translate have become very good friends. But I have goals, to go back and learn it.
Yeah, well, perfect. Now, so at what point, just to give folks an idea, you're about to hit. I did a little research. Your 7-year mark of having your real
Yeah.
estate license. I'm not sure if you were aware of that in a couple days. So almost an anniversary. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't realize it actually. Good
Now,
job.
yeah, but thank you, thank you. So when you decide to take this plunge into getting into real estate, what were you had a different career prior to? Give me an idea, like what you kind of brought into real estate with you that's helped you get to
Yeah.
this level to succeed.
It was definitely a series of steps, which is often what life is. It's one reason I named my team Journey. It has Journey is also a fantastic band. And I may have been getting tattooed listening to Journey when I was like, I love that. Gotta keep that into the team name. So in my 20s, my ex and I moved a little bit, and I had the blessing and curse at the time to actually get into Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Okay.
And it was in my 20s, and we had moved up to Jersey. And I'd always used the product, got into it. Long story short, I ended up doing very well in Mary Kay over the course of 8 years, built a unit of sometimes 150, 200 women up and down the East Coast. Um,
Wow. Okay.
Earn the cars, the trips, the whole thing. And really learned a lot about sales. I was, even though my director, my national director at the time, I was not a very healthy, um, emotionally healthy kind of person. She was amazing at training, and she taught us, and she was heavy on sales training. We read every book. We had all the big guest speakers come in, and I learned a ton about overcoming objections, the disc, and meeting people where they're at and reading people. And I'd always been very good with just building rapport and building trust with folks. I think when you're an honest person, that comes pretty naturally. So I learned a lot through there, and did a really, and had a wonderful career, and was able to stay home with my kids and do all of that for 8 years. And then life happens, and divorce happened. And so I had all this sales experience, and no one took it seriously. And so I needed to get a full-time job, and I started at the bottom, and I hopped around jobs a little bit for the first 6 months. And then I landed at, here in Norfolk, corporate was homes.com. And I landed at homes.com. And
Okay.
I was hired as an inside sales rep, making $25,000 a year and a little bit of commissions. And within 7 months, got promoted to the inside sales training manager. And so, because they
Wow.
recognized, maybe some of my experience was valid. So became a sales training manager there. And I was there for a couple of years, and I learned a ton about real estate. And I really enjoyed doing it. But I was definitely, single mom supporting 2 kids, and I was chasing the money. So I
Yeah.
left there, and I took a series of jobs, outdoor sales, indoor sales, digital marketing, newspaper, and radio over the
Okay.
next couple of years, and just change jobs and chase money and chase money and chase money. And I think it was the second job into it, after I left Homes, I realized I absolutely hated what I was doing. And
Right.
this was not going to last, because if you hate it, you're not going to last.
Yeah.
So I needed a plan B. And so I got my real estate license. I thought back, after 2 years there and dealing with all the brokers and the agents, and some of them were making hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they could do it, I could do this. I
Yeah.
could absolutely do this. So I got my license as a backup, and I started doing it part-time while I worked full-time, because, single mom thing, you can't just quit your job, right?
Right.
So did that for a couple of years, and then winter of 2018, discovered, and not really the form to go into this, but discovered I had breast cancer, and went into my job the day after discovering it, and they fired me.
Wow.
And it was Christmas of 2018. So I tried to get hired by other jobs, and I was unhireable because no one wants that when they're hiring a new sales account executive. So I had real estate, and I fell back on real estate and I dove in. My first closing was the week that I had my double mastectomy. And I couldn't even attend it. And so that was 2019 was my first full-time year doing real estate. And I had 3 surgeries and, got all of that taken care of. And I just kept charging. So yeah, I brought to the table when I jumped into real estate, I knew eventually I would want to start a brokerage or something of the sort, because I'd always been in a team environment, and I knew I have strengths, and I knew one of my strengths was building a team and building an atmosphere that's very collaborative and empowering.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for years, and it's what I'm really passionate about. So I knew I would get there eventually in real estate, but took a couple years to start the team, and and so that's what I've been doing since then.
Well, let's go. When we come back, we're going to dive into kind of how you really kick things off when you got into it full time, and then maybe some of the attributes from the previous sales industries that you brought to the table into real estate. So we right back with Kristina Price. Well, welcome back, everyone. So Kristina, at this point, we're going to hop into the story where you've decided to go full time at it hard and make this your career. So
Yeah.
walk us through kind of those first 90 days for you, and kind of what you're advising agents right now as they get into it.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the first 90 days for me, it's a little bit of a blur, just due to the surgeries and some really great, drugs to deal, prescribed drugs from the doctors. But the one thing I remember is I didn't waste time. The one thing I was always really good about is going into the office. There were
Yeah.
times it was just me and my sales manager at the time. I was always in the office. I was at every training. I always picked up the phone, like no matter what I was doing. And I always tell my team and people in the way I was trained, like it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen. You don't have to be in the perfect situation where it's quiet and you can focus to talk to someone. We all have lives. And so if I was cooking dinner and Zillow rang, I answered it. I didn't care. So I just made myself fully accessible and dove in to everything I could. And really that's what I did for that whole first year in 2019. And that very first year, I think I closed close to 3.5 million in volume. And so for a first full-time year on top of 3 surgeries and everything, I was pretty happy with that.
For sure. And it's interesting now that you are kind of in the management role that you're in. Let's talk about your thoughts on going into the office first, because you were going in, and lots of people over the years that have told me that's really beneficial for them. How do either people get around not going in and still be productive, or do you think it's not necessarily possible? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's the same idea that can I sign up for a real estate course and take it online and be successful? No, absolutely not. I am Gen X and ADD, and I would never pass, right? I have to be in person. But I know plenty of others that can do these self-paced online courses and bang it out, and they love it that way. Here's the thing, whether it's in person or virtual or a hybrid, there is one common denominator that I think surpasses all of it, is that if there's a training offered or if there's an event to partake in, you show up and you do it. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, it doesn't really matter. You show up and you do it. Like every time you don't, you are denying yourself an opportunity to grow. Right.
Yeah.
So just showing up sometimes is the battle. That is the win. It's the same idea. Like sometimes just waking up in the morning and stepping foot in the gym is the win. You don't
Right.
like anything, right? So I think whether it's in person or Zoom, and my team currently is a hybrid of both. because we have people out of town and in town. So I've had to adjust and provide everything both ways. But no matter what, those that show up succeed.
That's a really good point. And, we talk a lot about that for agents over the years that had gotten that experience, like, would go into the office and then it's gone to the other way. And really taking advantage of those opportunities seems to be the important point, right? So whether it's the title companies having a class on this or a loan officer is having a class on this, you should probably be attending those, even if you're not necessarily going to work with those people. And maybe you may find that you would enjoy working with them, but that's that information that you're gathering to help you do your job, which is so important.
Absolutely. This is the one job that we don't know what we're doing when we start the job. We
Right.
learn everything. We learn everything by going, whoops, guess I
You're
won't do
right.
that again. And so it really is. I always tell people, if you're one of those people that has to have the horse before the cart, real estate is not for you, because you just have to jump in and figure it out. I call
Yeah.
it the figure it out mindset. And so, I mean, I've been doing this almost 7 years, and there is not a single training I go to that I don't learn something I didn't know before still.
That's such a great point. And it's funny too, because the industry evolves and there's always kind of like secrets in the way I think about it that people don't necessarily know. And I'll give you a perfect example. So I claim to be, and I'm not arguing that I'm the best, but I'm pretty solid on VA loans. That's my focus. I'm a former Marine, things like that.
Sure.
I closed a deal a couple days ago on a non VA approved condo, and I had no idea that you could even do such a thing until I did a little research, and I'm on a Facebook group and I kind of punched it in there and I saw somebody's post about getting a non-approved VA condo, allowing the borrower to go VA. No idea it could
I
be done.
know that you truly just excited me so much. I'm like,
Yeah.
tell me
I,
more.
right. So, and that's kind of the thing. So, it's these little wrinkles in the business that I'm in 20 years doing 1,000 plus VA loans, and I
Yeah,
had no idea that was an option.
yeah, that's
And
awesome.
and how many of those do you have for real estate where you've had a situation where everybody else is probably like, yeah, can't be done, and then the next thing you know, you figure it out and you're closing. You're like, yeah, I can. You just gotta, I mean, you gotta do some weird stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it can get done.
Yeah, it's infinite possibilities, because every situation
Exactly.
is so unique. So
Yeah,
yeah, yep.
100%. Now, so you're really focusing on showing up, being there, getting the training done, going to these different opportunities. Now, let's talk about how are you generating clients at this point? So again, you're out of the gate. This is our first year full time. How are you going and getting in front of people? Are you holding open houses every weekend? Are you doing different weird events where you're meeting people? What's kind of your secret to get it going?
Yeah, it was a blend. And I believe, especially when you are a new agent, it should be a blend. So it was a blend of a lot of open houses, a lot of being bored. This was, 2019, and 2018, even when I was part-time, where it could easily take 6 months to sell a house. So the open
Yeah.
houses were quite boring, so a lot of open houses, some Zillow and Legion provided by my branch at the time, and then Sphere. I am from this area, and so, but as most people recognize, everybody knows a real estate agent, or they are one themselves. So you don't get a ton of Sphere even when you're a new agent. So it's a blend of everything. I think what I naturally have always been good at is retaining those clients and keeping up the rapport and the follow through. And so my goal always from the beginning is even when it was a Zillow client, to keep that Zillow client, turn them into my personal client. And
Gotcha.
so that evolved, and I learned the hard way on things to do and not to do, just like anybody else. But yeah, it was definitely a blend of everything.
Let me ask you a question on an open house, because I've been thinking about this idea as just different ways for agents to get business. And now when you do an open house, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say you have a pretty hop an open house and you have, let's say, 10 couples come through, right? So of those 10, let's say 6 are already working with an agent, 2 are
Mhm.
the neighbors, and then you have maybe 2 that are you could potentially start working with, but they've also visited 10 open houses today or whatever the number is, right? How come I've never seen at an open house, and maybe people do them and I'm just not seeing it. How come nobody's tried the idea of me, the person walking into the open house, receiving like a swag bag from you, the agent sitting in the open house, that let's say I have kids and my kids are with me, and like, hey, thanks so much for coming to my open house, is kind of a parting gift. I got, whether it's in a bag, a box, you name it, of kind of something unique. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of anybody trying an idea that like that?
I haven't, and I can tell you the couple of obstacles that would stand in front of people and why they haven't tried anything like that. Of course, we always have the drinks and the snacks at open houses, right?
Right.
But especially then, and depending on now, one, most agents are trained not to spend money on their open house because so many people that come through are already represented. So it's seen as wasted money.
Okay.
Number two, most people are not trained on how to do a proper open house. They don't know the ways to canvass the neighborhood and go around to the businesses and to do the flyers and to do a Facebook Live a couple days before. They just show up, put some signs out. They're like, there you go. We got our open house.
Right.
So
Come on in, neighbors.
yeah, it's like, "Hi, guys." So I think it's a lack of training and a lack of understanding. But more than anything, most of the time, open houses are being run by brand new agents. And so then you run into a situation like I tell my agents, I'm like, be careful where you spend your money.
Yeah.
And so you don't want, and I've seen people do it where they spend $200 or $300 going into an open house and they get zero out of it,
Return on it.
right?
Yeah.
Zero return. So I think it's a blend of both. If there was a very cost effective way to do it, I think that would be brilliant. But and there is, I'm sure there is. People just don't take the time to sit down and figure it out.
Yeah, I just have been kind of thinking different ideas, as we know that the real estate market is getting ready for a major change here, as we're sitting, in later July doing our show, and coming up in August, and we're going to see what's going to happen with everything that's about to come down the pike.
Yeah.
But the idea of being able to get a client from something like that, because the open house experiences that I've been a part of, where people have come through and then the agents ended up working with the random person that came through, it's like, well, how do I break through that? Oh, I'm just looking. I already have an agent, but they don't. And, just
Yeah.
trying to get that engagement. And I've just been thinking about different ways to do that. So that's why I thought
Yeah.
I'd throw that at you. But
Yeah.
and maybe it'll spur some wheels for others out there that are listening, of a way that they can take that idea and run with it.
Yeah.
So then, at what point are you, how are you starting to get some referrals from the folks that you're helping? As your database is growing, did you lean in on your sales tactics from the previous jobs to kind of like take some of those and put it towards the real estate side? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I did, but I think it comes so naturally to me that I'm not sure I even realize that it is. It's funny. I think my sales tactics from Mary Kay is what led to those jobs, and then made me realize I'm terrible at hardcore selling. I'm better at relationship selling.
Yes. Yeah.
It's one reason I hated those jobs, and I knew I wasn't going to be successful. And so what it comes down to it is building a rapport and a relationship and breaking through those walls that people build up. So I don't believe that there's any topic that is off the table. So if I need to talk to my clients about money, I just face it head on. And I create a very safe environment to talk about it, and I
Smart.
make them feel safe. I give them permission to change their minds. I give them my advice and then hear how they're feeling, and then help them decide based on that. But always, no matter what, giving my clients ultimate say so with zero shame and zero guilt. And I think a lot of agents are not so good at that. They have an agenda and they don't want the deal to fall apart, and they want their client to do what they think is the smart thing. And so, but it's all about our clients and about their wishes and wills and their journey, right? It's not our journey. And so I think from the beginning, I learned that the hard way back in the day when I was with Mary Kay, about creating safe areas and allowing people to feel and decide, and no matter how it affected me, support them, like hands down. And if you do that, people come back. Then it took a couple of years to get my systems into place, because agents aren't so good at systems. We're very reactionary.
What?
It's crazy. And to really start doing the Buffini method and following up and stuff like that. But since then, my retention and referrals, have been outrageous, have been out of this world. But I think it all starts then. Are you
Yeah.
more of a transactional agent, or when you're helping these people, are they kind of stuck with you? And they want
Right.
to stuck with you.
I think that's such a great way to look at it, though, of really giving them, not having the guilt. Like, right, if I don't want to strong arm you into doing this, even if it might probably be the best for, buy a house now versus, I'm going to wait 12 months or whatever. But getting that comfort level, I think, is important for people. And the relationship with the clients is so huge. And agents, the transaction side versus the relationship side, you're going to get more referrals from the relationship side for sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a great point. Now, when we come back, we're going to kind of delve into like where you're at in your business now, how you decided to make the jump to being the team leader, all those things. We'll be right back with Kristina. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Kristina, you made it through kind of that initial I'm in the business full-time grind, really started taking off. Let's take the folks up to kind of where you're at in your career now, having a team. Tell me about kind of your transition to EXP, just the full backstory. How did that go?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, starting the team, to be honest, was easy. We went from 3 to 10 almost overnight.
Wow.
And my struggle is that I knew I was really good at building a team, but I also knew I had no idea how to run a business. None.
Okay.
No experience running a business. I was great with people, not numbers. And so I knew pretty early on I needed a mentor, and it took me a while to find one. And I interviewed around and had hopes, and nothing. I'm very big on just following your gut and listening to your internal, dialogue. I feel like the universe or God or the spirit, whatever you want to call it, really tells you exactly where to go and who to align yourself with. So I'd always said, no, 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 I would never join EXP. I saw it as a multi-level marketing, pyramid scheme. And I did that with Mary Kay. I was like, I'm never going to do that again. And then I had the one guy that could have ever asked me to sit down and talk to him about it and called me. And he happened to be the guy that was sitting next to me at the job that fired me the day I came back after learning I had breast cancer. And he's the
Oh,
one
wow.
that collected my stuff and walked me to my car and sat there and made sure I could drive because it was a bad day. And he since then had gotten in real estate and was with EXP, and he called me, and I have a soft spot. And I was like, do I get alcohol out of this? Like if I'm going to
You're gonna
drink.
buy me a drink, right?
He's like,
Because
yes, absolutely. So I go and meet with him and his two buds. And within 20 minutes, I was like, crap, I'm joining EXP. And it really, and then we joined, it was just over 2 years ago. And even then it took a solid 6 months for me to even, EXP is like drinking out of a fire hydrant hose. Like it's just overwhelming. And it's really difficult. And I love the guys that I joined up with, but they're not so much system process kind of guys. Right. So it took a long time to kind of figure things out and figure out all the things that there are to take advantage of. And so we dove in, and my team has always stayed, between 8 and 10. And 20, we came over June of 22. And the rest of that year was okay. And the beginning of 23 was pretty okay. And then one of my uplines, way up in EXP, runs one of the most successful teams in EXP, and he started mentoring me. And he finally taught me. He came up with an entire system. It's a team leader training. It's 6 modules, and he taught me how to run a business. So
Wow.
then 2023 became my year of systems. I just decided every month I was focusing on implementing a new system, and everything from my personal business to follow up to Buffini to CRMs to finances and bank accounts and spreadsheets and admin. I just made it the year of systems, and really started focusing on getting a really good foundation. And my team wasn't really doing much. I did 7 million for 2023. The fall and winter was like the Sahara Desert. It was awful. I had very little savings, and those savings all got cashed out. Like that was it, just to survive. And then 2024 hit, and I started hardcore implementing all the systems. And we just dialed everything in really tight. And
Nice.
since then, so in the last 7 months, I think last year my team total did 13 million. I just got word right now we've just hit 22 million as a team. And I'm tracking to do 15 million personally. And that is not being 50-50 on my people stuff. That is me personal.
Right.
And so we've grown a lot. We have 14 active team members currently, and now we're across 3 states. We're across most of Virginia, North Carolina, and we just had our first girl move to Houston. So that is one of the biggest things. And I think my focus changed over the last year. Is so often we're so focused on the real estate in our market, our MSA, our marketing service area, and which makes sense. When you have a real estate license, you can only work in certain areas,
Right.
where that license is. And the one thing that I realized about EXP quick is that we aren't bound by boundaries at all. We can grow anywhere and we can do anything. Yes, I personally cannot sell a house in Texas without a license, but I can grow my team out in Texas, and I can grow my team in all 50 states, and I can be their team lead, and I can train a whole bunch of other women and men across the country to grow teams and put in a salary and a bonus structure. And I can literally be a franchise without ever having to pay a single franchise fee and having
That's
to do anything like that. And globally, I could grow globally if I wanted. I'm going to start with the states. We're going to start here. Let me get to 5 and 10 states first. But I realized that it had the reach and the expanse that I'd always dreamed of, and the ability to truly coach and mentor and empower people and teach them how to run a successful business without any of the overhead liability or expenses. And I just don't know how you get past that.
That's really a strong testimonial for EXP, like being anti EXP and then
Yeah.
getting the sales, for pitch, for lack of a better way to put it. And here's some things to consider, and then seeing what's inside. But one of the things that really struck me about what you just said, though, when when we think about making a change in the business, or we're going to get better, or we're going to do this, we think end goal. I want to have my CRM right. I want to have my past client marketing right. I want to have all my 10 things that I want to be perfect. And then the problem becomes, oh my gosh, I still got to close a few deals around here, and I got family, and how am I going to get to all these 10 things? And doing it month by month was
Yeah.
brilliant. Like,
Well,
I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm just going to focus on getting my budget right now.
I genuinely, and this is why I tell my team all the time, they're so tired of me saying it. I'm like, always go, because you never know when the one thing is going to be said that changes your entire future and your entire mindset. And I went to
Yeah.
EXPCon 2022. It's my first EXPCon, out in Vegas. Never been in Vegas. I was broke as all get out. But I went, and I said in one training, and I don't know who it was, some bigwig, I don't know. It was a blur, but I just remember the one thing. They were like, what if you just took one system every month and you focused on it? What would you have at the end of the year? You'd have 12 new systems. 12 new
Yeah.
systems. What if you only did half that? You'd end up with 6 new systems. How terrible would that be? Right. And I just was like, oh my God, that's what I have to do. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
And that's what 2023 became for me. And I did not get 12 new systems in, but holy smoke, did I get a whole lot more in than I'd ever had before. And it changed the entire focus of our team.
That's brilliant. I think a lot of folks listening are in that state. A lot of agents listening are really good realtors.
Yeah.
And I think,
Great.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, great agents, but maybe right now we're struggling with work-life balance. Maybe we're struggling with how are we going to get more clients? What's the writing on the wall come August? You name it. But the idea of really just focusing on a single system for a month, get it tuned in. Don't worry about the other 9 that we need to work on. They're coming next, but just one at a time. I think that's smart. So, as you're kind of growing the team, and let's maybe touch on some of the things for your new agents that you've brought on, some of their struggles and how you're helping them work through.
Yeah. So it's again about systems and processes, right? We have
Yeah.
a big team collaboration. So we have our workplace chat, where we're all on. I have a pretty strict schedule of training that is all offered in person or Zoom for my out of town people. And then, other than that, it really comes down to CRM management, making sure that they're following up, making sure that they have questions. They absolutely feel like they can reach out to any of us at any time. And even though I am very often available on my phone, I'm not 100%, no one can be. And so, because of that, with them knowing and truly having collaboration and connection within the team, and feeling like it's a family, they feel 100% they can reach out to anybody. So if I don't
Yeah.
answer within the 5 minutes they need, there's 12 other people that can, and some of them have more experience than I do by far. Just because I'm the team leader doesn't mean I'm the longest term agent, right? So it really is about empowering people, and also teaching them that there's so many ways to get the answers. We have a Google Classroom, we have all sorts of video tutorials, we have a huge Google Drive, online. Even our local MLS has a ton, EXP has a ton. We have, our workplace chat groups and state groups. Everybody, I don't know why everybody thinks brokers are not a thing in EXP. I have 5 brokers I can call at the drop of a hat. I have 24/7 broker access, which is amazing. So, and all my people know the brokers, they've met them, they have their numbers, they know how to get in touch with them. And so if we ever have an issue, we're not alone. We're not on an island. And even beyond that, then we've created our area-wide EXP groups on Facebook, and I have an email group. So there's hundreds of EXP people beyond my team for them to tap into when they have
Who have the
questions. So it
answers?
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really about just providing the ability to get the answers, and then having really, really good training processes when someone's new.
Really smart. Now, I was going to ask you about kind of like your group. Do you have a set Monday we meet at this time, Wednesdays this time? Like how many Zoom face to face, like a version like this, are you having a week?
Throughout the week, there's probably 8 different times that we are on Zoom or in person together. Now, not all of them are required. When it comes to education and furthering your training, I consider that voluntary. If you want to grow, you'll show. Right. If you're busy and you don't want to grow, you're not going to show up. I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm not your mom. I got kids. Right. So, so, but between we do huddles with our transaction coordination or coordinators twice a week for 15 minutes to go over all of our transactions. On Mondays, I hold something called Success Squad, which is not just my team. It's open to anyone who's wanting to focus. And we work through a book. Right now we're working through Atomic Habits, and the workbooks, and really holding each other to high level accountability. Tuesdays, we have an online training with my mentor, Austin Chevron, and we log into his live coaching. Thursdays, we have an agent success program, and we do Buffini before that if we have a Buffini round going. So there's a handful throughout the week. And then we also do Chat GPT and AI training for those that want more of that.
So you definitely have the theme days, which I think being in coaching myself, theme days are a big part of what we do, and a lot of loan officers and agents who have become successful. It's like, this is your plan Monday, this is your plan Tuesday. Like, so it's
Yep.
not random. It's not, let's see what happens. So I love that. If you want to grow, you'll show. I mean, that's just a great way to put it. Now, when we come back, I love to hear some great stories. So we'll be right back with Kristina. Well, welcome back, everyone. So Kristina, I've given just a lot of great advice today, and really an insight into EXP that honestly I hadn't had anybody kind of go over before on the show. So I appreciate that. Let me kick it off by asking one of my favorite questions. So, best piece of advice you got early on in your career that's had a big impact for you?
Okay. It's not my real estate career. Let's go back to Mary Kay.
Okay.
One of her biggest facets, I have all sorts of quotes from her because she was brilliant. If you've never read her biography, it's amazing. But one of her best quotes was, make everyone you're speaking to act as if they have a sign hanging around their neck that says, make me feel important.
Wow. Okay.
So sometimes in sales, and especially in sales management, we're so busy multitasking that we forget that we're dealing with individuals. And these individuals have needs and insecurities and concerns, and they're on their own growth journey. And we're so focused on our growth journey that we don't stop to focus on them as individuals. Yeah. And I will tell you, people will give you all the grace all day long if they know that you truly care, and if you take the time to show them that you care. Then you can make mistakes, you can F up, you can go back and apologize. It's not about being perfect, it's about building that trust that they know ultimately you have their best interest in mind, even above the money. Because every single one of my people know that if I had an issue between them and commission, I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick them hands down, because I would want the same, especially when you're at the beginning and every penny literally matters. You're like just scraping. So I would say in this business, maybe stop focusing on the money and focus on the people, whether it's your clients or your team, and just every day wake up and just remember that every person you're talking to, give them those 5 minutes of undivided time and make them feel important and heard.
That's beautiful. All right. Bet, what's your personal motto right now?
Just figure it out. My personal motto for years has just been, just figure it out. Like, you don't know, figure it out. I don't want to hear I can't. I just had a team member only last 6 days on my team. Not great.
Right.
And we did not drive because of that. I have a figure it out mentality. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. I don't know how to do that. Figure it out. Figure it out. Like, everybody can figure it out.
That's a really good one, and I jive with that too, because I could go off on a tangent. My loan partner, who is my right arm woman, who I ride or die for, when she first started with me, that was kind of my mindset: figure it out, because you're going to need to in the business. And it irritated her in the beginning, and then like a month in, she's like, "Oh, I see why he does that." Like, you can't just turn around to the guy all the time and be like, "Well, how do I do this? How do I do that?"
It's like, one of those things. Same with, if you're going to do it with your kids, like, I'm not going to show you how to mop the floor for the 10th time. Figure it out. This is
right. Exactly.
science,
Exactly. Yeah.
And so not that I don't show my people and we don't hold their hands sometimes, but the fact of the matter is if you want a different life, you have to build it. No one's going to do it for you.
They're not going to hand it for you. That's right. All right. Can you think of a bold move you made early on in your career that resulted in a deal or a transaction or an opportunity that if you had not done X, you would not get Y?
Well, I'm in the middle of a couple of them currently.
Okay.
So tune back in one day. Maybe we'll see, because I've taken a couple of bold moves lately. But I will say that there have been some deals that I was like a dog on a bone for, um, where even one up in Yorktown, and it was a friend of ours, and they were interested in a house, and but he's a hardball, and the house went under contract and it came off, and then it came off the market, and I'm calling the agent, and it took months for these people to put it back on the market. And the whole time I'm sending offers in, I'm sending off. She's like, the house isn't on the market. I was like, but you still have an ethical obligation to submit this offer over to them. Like, just go. And then they put it on the market, and we weren't the highest, but we were the most tenacious. And so,
Wow.
they just had their home anniversary a year ago. Sometimes it just requires not giving up and getting really creative,
Yeah.
and building that rapport. Again, building the rapport will make a difference any day.
I love it. All right. Last one for you, which is always the favorite one. So I will set it up this way. Do you have a funny, scary, weird, unique story about a showing, a past client, a transaction, just anything? You're sitting on a beach in 30 years and somebody says, tell me your best real estate story. What do you got?
So I'm gonna have to go with one of my more recent ones because I have the worst memory when it comes to
Okay.
stuff like this. Like, I've definitely a
People
short-term
block them
memory.
out. Trust me.
Right, and I think that's some of it. But recently, I had a client that were a little difficult, but I can handle difficult people. I'm really good at difficult people. And I was referred to them for a North Carolina, because I'm licensed in North Carolina. So I was referred to them, and they had already found this house like 2 months before I came into the picture. They'd already put an offer on this house, and it was declined by the listing agent, and it gone in and out of contract a couple times with other people. And then it went back on the market, and I got referred to them. And so I wrote the offer for them immediately, and sent it off and got accepted. I had never stepped in a house. That's just the way it works.
Yeah. You already had the
Um,
house. You've already seen it a couple times. Like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
they'd
with you.
already put an offer in on it, like
Right.
at
Right.
some
It's like, you're
point.
familiar, right?
Right. And I think it was more of a verbal offer, but their house was listed here. Things were not going well with the listing agent. It was starting to jeopardize the North Carolina deal. So they ended up withdrawing that and then relisting with me. And had been on the market for, I don't know, 45 days at that point. And we took a week, they busted butt. They did everything I told them to do. We put it on the market. It went under contract in 4 days, and we got 18 grand over what they were asking.
Yeah.
So then North Carolina starts plugging away. Everything's good. We only go to the house like twice throughout the whole transaction. It was over the winter. Winter was dry. We close on the house, and spring hits,
Okay.
and it's a disaster.
Oh,
It's just
no.
a disaster.
Yeah.
And it truly, unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand what our roles as agents are, and home inspectors, but we truly can't see beneath floors and behind walls. Um, and I'm not an expert. I have a good idea of certain things, but I'm not an expert on all things. And so long story short, it ended up being an extra like $30,000 of work for them on this house, with some mold and some issues, which, I mean, I did everything I could. There's no recourse. It's a buyer beware situation still. And so it was very surprising to me when they loved me so much that they went onto my Google business page and just blasted me. And
Oh,
for
nice.
the
Yeah.
whole world, I only cared about money, and that we were all in this kind of in a coup together. And
You and the home inspector.
yes, and everything was our fault, and it sucks because you really do care about these people as you're going through, and when you give like everything. But I was going to say, I really haven't had too many clients that had issues with me, or I've had to block, like, after,
Yeah.
but I did have to, like, had to put some boundaries down with that situation. But it went very public. Like, a lot of people saw it quick, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome," So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Like, it bothers you for a day, and then you wake up, and you're like, you know what? Like, I know that I did everything I could.
Yeah.
Like I know my heart and my integrity, and that's all that matters at the end of the day, you know. But yeah, no matter if you're in this long enough, it will happen.
I can co-sign that all day long.
Yeah.
We can help 1,000 clients, and that we're going to have one or two that it's just you just can't win.
Yep.
And I think, and you go back to the idea of grace and giving others grace, and people need to know and that are listening to this show, like it's going to happen eventually, and just do your very best, and but just know, keep yourself motivated and know your worth, and don't let them get you down, because
Yeah.
I got a few of those myself.
Yep.
Anyway,
Well,
but Kristina, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so much for coming on the show today. I love what you had to say. I think you're going to have a wonderful impact for the folks listening. So thank you again.